Back on Sports Bet Betting Insight today, Paulie and Teddy. As always, live on sportsbookreview.com. Here we go, divisional round. Saturday, 1:30 Pacific on Fox. The Seahawks take on Atlanta. Falcons are 5-51 the total. This line surprises me because Atlanta, you would think Seattle, after they beat a phony Detroit team, people would overreact and say, wow, they look great. Look how they ran the ball, the playoff experience. Not the case. People are buying the Falcons, and they have scored 33 points in 10 of their 16 games. Now, what home team is going down this weekend? I thought, last year, I don't want to say fluke, but last year, all 4 home teams won off the bye. That was the first time that happened in 11 years. Since 1990, teams off the bye, 69-23 straight up, 10-2 the last 3 years straight up. And Teddy, we've had upsets where 15-1, 14-2, 13-3 have got beat. Not only have they lost at home, they were laying doubles in those games. So anything happens in the last 10 years, it's some wild shit that goes on in this round.
It sure does. And you talk about how last year was the anomaly after 10 straight years with one of the top 2 seeds in at least one of the conferences going down. But it hasn't been a bevy of upsets. You talk about that since 1990, and I hate the sample sizes since 1990. In my mind, that's too long. But still, you're seeing the rested team winning 3 out of 4 in straight up fashion, and that's about mathematically what we would expect. But you say you're surprised that it's been Atlanta money. Not a ton of Atlanta money, but the Falcons holding pretty steady at 5. There's been over money. The total bet up from 49.5 to 51, even some 51.5s popping up. But I'm not surprised. The Falcons made a lot of people a lot of money this year. They were a good point spread team. They cashed a ton of over tickets. Again, talk about that in just a minute. And Seattle in the win over Detroit. People are going to bet on what they saw last that looked good. Seahawks weren't dominant against the Lions. That point spread was still in doubt into the fourth quarter. It wasn't one of those situations where they completely controlled the game. And Seattle's offense hasn't really worked as well away from home this season. So I'm not shocked that Atlanta's in this point spread range. In fact, of all of the quote-unquote, you think the public teams that won last week are going to get a ton of support. The only one's getting a ton of support that I see is Green Bay, which is a game that we'll preview tomorrow.
Yeah, all right. Playoff experience, a lot of people think it's a big deal. Since 2010, the Seahawks have 9 playoff wins. The Falcons have 1. And this was a rematch of a few years ago. The Falcons won 30-28 at home over the Seahawks in 2012. Matt Ryan, while he might be the MVP, he's 1-4 straight up and 0-5 against the spread career in the playoffs, 4-1 to the over. The only under was that debacle in New York when they lost 24-2. And remember, they blew a big lead in his only playoff win, and he had to rally late, and they had to set up for the game-winning field goal.
That being said, Matt Ryan marched him down the field and set up that game-winning field. I don't fault Matt Ryan for the loss to Seattle back in 2012. As you mentioned, his only career a playoff win, and I don't fault him for the fact that his team was laying 2.5 or 3 in that ballgame, which cost them the point spread cover. But when it comes to meaningful playoff experience, look, Seattle's playing multiple, not one and done. They have won at least one playoff game and gotten to play another in each of the last 5 seasons. Remember, they won one last year and then lost week 2 when they had to go down to Carolina. The Falcons, on the other hand, have not been in the playoffs at all since 2012.
Yeah, new look Seahawks last week. I don't know. I think it was said more about Detroit, but Rawls finally healthy, 161 yards. Reese was on the field for 33 of the 73 snaps, but the Hawks only used a fullback on 107 snaps all season. And also, which was key, Rawls had so much success, they didn't have to use Wilson to scramble and make plays with his feet.
Well, yeah, and there was a huge difference in pace. With that style, with the fullback on the field, Marcel Reese, a guy who had, 4 straight Pro Bowl seasons in Oakland, and then he had a PED issue, and the Raiders cut him, and he landed here, in Seattle. Reese got the game ball last week, from Russell. Well, that's how important he was to the Seahawks' offensive game plan. I mean, you say, all right, what happened in the regular season that's not happening in the playoffs? Seattle struggled to run the football in the regular season. And they played at a fairly an average pace. And they're ranked number 14 in the NFL, 27.5 seconds per snap. Against the Lions last week, they ran the football. They ran with a fullback. and their pace was as slow as any team in the NFL. If measured against all other teams in the regular season, they would have been dead last. So maybe it is a change of style for Seattle, and anyone who's focusing on regular season numbers isn't going to be able to notice that change of style.
Yeah, well, that's the way to beat Atlanta. That's the game plan. Slow the game down, keep that high-powered offense off the field, and run right at them. The Falcons' run defense, 29th in Football Outsiders, gave up 4.5 yards per rush.
Yeah, and of course, the Seahawks, they didn't run any I formation all year. It was kind of in waiting. They found a fullback. Rawls finally healthy. Here's the offensive coordinator, Tom Cable. It makes the game kind of normal for us. That's what we've been chasing, so we had the opportunity to do that last week. So, yeah, it's a different game plan for Seattle right now, but that's on the offensive side. On the defensive side, Paulie, they're up against it going against this Atlanta offense.
Yeah, Cable, the O-line coach. This offense, statistically, one of the best ever. Not only the best in the NFL, but faced the number 2 schedule in terms of defensive quality. Remember, they went up and down the field at Seattle, and there was a controversy late where they no call on Sherman against Julio. Julio said he's going to talk to the refs and let them know, watch the holding on this Seattle defense, which kind of the key to their success is hold. They're not going to call it every play.
All right, and this is something we've said on SportsBet a handful of times, but we got to really talk about this for a minute. Atlanta was 1.2 yards per play better than an average offense this year. And they did that despite facing the number 2 schedule in terms of defensive toughness. Only 7 other teams finished within a yard per play of Atlanta, and they're 6.7 yards per play for the season, the highest number in the NFL over the last 5 years. So no surprise, we're talking about a team that went 13-2-1 to the over as a result. By far the number 1 over team in the NFL. And the only 2 unders they played, at Denver, where every game went under, the elite pass defense, and that was when the Broncos were still good over the first half of the season. And then they lost 24-15 in the ultimate flat spot right before the bye at Philly. So the only 2 unders they played came against top-notch pass defenses, which Seattle, in theory, is supposed to have.
Yeah, that's knockout information there. Ryan likes to spread it around through touchdown passes to 13 different players, but you're going to hear this all week, and rightfully so. Is he ready for the prime time? This is a guy who's got it done in the regular season, but again, only has 1 career playoff win, and they pay him a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, here's his quote, talking about his playoff failures in the past. I don't worry about it too much. One thing I've learned throughout my career is if you spend time worrying about that, you're not spending time worrying about the things that are going to make a difference on game day. So I focus on getting myself prepared mentally and physically, making sure I'm on top of the plan and making sure I'm ready to go the best I can on Saturday. Here's Dan Quinn, Atlanta's head coach, talking about his first playoff game. I would hope it totally come across how fast and physical that we play. We're going to go out and attack in all 3 phases in this game. Those are the things we stand for in our program, so we want that to totally come to life. The players here, we have a real clear vision of how we want to play. I think that helps a bunch. We're not trying to be anything different than who we are.
Jimmy Vaccaro told me on the radio show he thinks it'll be late Seattle money. You agree?
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some Seahawks buyback. Again, the sharpest bettors tend to look for defense, and the Seahawks' defensive numbers throughout the regular season better than Atlanta's.
Hey guys, for the full video, go to sbrpicks.com.
That's right, the 8th annual SBR Forum Bash will be held at the breathtaking all-inclusive Hard Rock Hotel in Punta Cana on Super Bowl weekend. Join Natalie Rydstrom and the Odds Couple as they mingle with SBR pros and have fun under the sun. Stay tuned for video coverage of Bash activities, including a $5,000 poker tournament sponsored by uwager.eu. Only on SBR, your sportsbook authority since 1999.